It was an incredible amount of work.
What do we want? Smaller class sizes!
To get to where we got to for the 2013-15 contract we just ratified.
Cheer for our students from Howell!
You will not see us protesting or even striking over wages and benefits. We will, however, protest or strike over lack of access to preschool, over not having dependable, reasonable class sizes. I had a completely different idea for the 2013-15 contract, and that was, what if we actually asked the community first? What agreements did you want our contract to hold that would make a difference in our teaching and learning conditions? Before I even put together a bargaining team, we put together 2 study groups or book clubs made up of parents, community members, and members of the St. Paul Federation of Teachers. Then we asked them 3 big questions. What are the schools St. Paul children deserve? Who are the teachers St. Paul children deserve? What is the profession those teachers then deserve?
Now I can see the toothpaste.
We brought in an outside facilitator, an expert in the community, so that the folks in these book clubs would not feel like they were talking to me or talking to the St. Paul Federation of Teachers and just saying what they wanted us to hear. This outside expert very, very deftly maneuvered this conversation to pull out lots of different angles. We had a listening session in December of 2012 and in March of 2013, where we reached out to another 100 or so people, asking them the same 3 questions. In April of 2013, the study groups presented the executive board of the St. Paul Federation of Teachers with the 7 priorities they had come up with. Our executive board spent time talking to them, asking questions, and at the end of that meeting, they adopted those 7 priorities as the priorities for the 2013-15 contracts for our teachers, educational assistants, and school and community service professionals, and then turned and directed our bargaining teams to negotiate from these priorities. They said, we want to make sure your contract addresses educating the whole child, those wraparound services, and those specialists children deserve and actually need to have if they're going to be college and career ready in the 21st century, like nurses, counselors, social workers, library media specialists, as well as access to art, music, and world languages and physical education. How can we make parent-teacher conferences be meaningful to everyone involved and not just be a quick 5 minutes on here's your missing work and your child's a joy to have in class? The study groups came to us and said we want smaller class sizes. We want to make sure that class sizes are dependable and reasonable. We also want to make sure there's an emphasis on teaching and not testing. The study groups talked about wanting a culturally relevant education. They wanted to encourage the St. Paul Federation of Teachers to continue our work in diversifying the teaching profession. They wanted to make sure we had really authentic ways of respecting the incredibly gorgeous cross-section of students that come to St. Paul Public Schools from our community. They wanted to make sure all of our teachers and our educational assistants, all of our education support professionals had access to high quality, relevant professional development. And they wanted to make sure that we increased our access to preschool. We were encroaching on their inherent managerial rights to run the district. And of the 29 proposals, they said 21 of them don't belong at the bargaining table, and they said they would refuse to talk about 21 of them. The most powerful asset at this point had been the parents and community members who had worked with us to create these priorities in the first place. And they said themselves, we spent a lot of time going through this. These are not things we came up with overnight. We want to see these things discussed, and we want to make progress on them.
On September 19th,
management at the St. Paul Public Schools walked out of negotiations
and asked the state to close our negotiations to the public.
So parents and other members of the community
couldn't hear what we were talking about.
Because negotiations were no longer open, we were going to do everything we could to make sure that negotiations stayed a public matter. We started door knocking the community and handing out leaflets that included these 7 priorities. And at the same time, when we were at the doors, we started asking people to sign a petition, asking the school board to recognize that these are priorities that can be negotiated. In November of 2013, we delivered over 4,000 signatures in a petition to a Board of Education meeting, asking them to keep these items at the negotiating table. We started getting more and more requests from parent groups to come talk to them about these priorities we had at the negotiating table, and invariably the question always came up, what can we do to support these priorities? What can we do to support you? When I started seeing parents actually, post pictures of their children putting up lawn signs in the snowbanks saying that, St. Paul students deserve less testing and more teaching, or they deserve school nurses, or they deserve librarians, or they deserve small class sizes. That's when I think that's when I first started noticing that there were a lot of people out there working to make sure that these priorities got negotiated, that we made progress on these priorities. We started contacting schools and talking to them about this idea of a walk-in. And what started with 3 or 4 schools turned into 5, turned into 15, turned into, by the end of the morning on January 30th, we had confirmed that 55 schools had participated in those walk-ins and had really been able to explode the attention we wanted to bring to these 7 priorities and to the fact that we hadn't made progress on any of them yet.
Our schools! Whose schools? Our schools!
This was absolutely the first morning blizzard we had gotten all winter. And the energy was as exciting as you would have wanted it to be. We had people gather about 45 minutes before school was supposed to start. We had folks set up in a place where they could do some visibility and get car horns honking. This was just one more example of demonstrating how much we wanted to get this done, how much we wanted to make progress on this. Part of the power in getting our message across to the media was making sure that they could picture what we were really fighting for.
Good morning.
This isn't about wages and benefits. So we were really proactive about taking that off the table right away and making sure that when we talked about these priorities, we told the stories of why these priorities were important.
There's not a nurse every day at every school in St. Paul.
Not every school has a school social worker, and schools that do don't all have full-time school social workers.
We're asking the district to have comprehensive school counseling programs for all students K through 12.
I have no less than 30 in any of my classes.
Class size definitely does affect learning.
What I think really helped was that Thursday we went in to negotiate. The Tuesday before that we had held a rally with parents and community members and our members of the St. Paul Federation of Teachers before the school board meeting. That rally was another joyful occasion. We had a number of parents speak as to why they were supporting us. We had people showing up in red, again, a bunch of homemade signs. We had people with their kazoos. It was fun. People were there and people were excited and people were really rallying toward a settlement that made progress on these things. When we went into that contract negotiation session on Thursday, not recognizing at the time it was going to take us 24 hours, but prepared for whatever it was going to take, we felt so buoyed by that rally and by the spirit of that rally and the number of people who said, we have all the faith in you in the world to get this done on Thursday. And so when we took our vote to authorize a strike vote, that really woke our school board up and they said, wait a minute, we had no idea that you had become so frustrated with negotiations. And that's when we realized that their bargaining team probably wasn't sharing everything that was being said at the table with them. I don't think that anything the St. Paul Federation of Teachers did during this negotiation session or even back to 2009 was magical. I actually think in many respects it was going back to exactly what labor did to create a movement in the first place. And that was walk side by side with the community on issues that the community finds important. There are things workers and the community have in common that are common good and that can be taken to the bargaining table together to make that commitment in your contract that you actually hold on the community's behalf.